Hello, Mamta. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. That was real quick. Hi, Rishabh. Hello, everyone. A very good morning. My name is Ayusha, and I am the host for today's session and also Bate and Kahisi's founder. Now, the reason we're doing this live today is because this is a part of our open therapy program that Bate has started in the wake of the pandemic. To make the help that you may need available to you, because going in for one-to-one counseling may be a difficult job. It may be a very hard and intimidating step to take. So we want to make it easier for you and bring counseling to your couch in the comfort of your houses. So today we are going to have with us Dr. Trinjana Khattar. She is the proficiency head and a psychotherapist at Institute for Exceptional Children, better known as IEC, in Mumbai. She specializes in grief counseling and uses it regularly with her clients to help overcome emotional blocks and access their best potential. So we are currently waiting for her to join in, and whenever she's here, we're going to start the session. Talking about the topic that we're going to be discussing around today is going to be dealing with coro anxiety. And believe me, I came across this topic only after I was discussing the session with Dr. Khattar. I had no idea that something like this actually existed, but people are talking about it. The mental health community has come up with this term because coro anxiety is a real thing. Talking a little about it, it works around three layers. Okay, so one is this segment of the people who are admitted to the hospital, and they are already suffering from the virus. So they're at the hospital and they're saying they're watching people die every day around them, and they're scared and they're losing hope. So that is the kind of anxiety that they're dealing with, and it may not be like a diagnosed mental health disorder, right? They may not have an anxiety disorder, but whatever they're feeling in that moment is just too overwhelming for them to kind of get over, and it can take a serious toll, not just on their mental health, which it already is, but also it may create a barrier in their recovery physically too. So this is one segment, and then there are the loved ones of the people who are in hospitals or who are battling this virus. So their anxiety, because they don't know if they're going to make it, also need to be emotionally available for these people. And then there's this third segment, which is the rest of us. We may not be in the hospitals ourselves, and we may not have somebody close to us admitted in hospitals or undergoing recovery either. Well, on that note, we have Trinjana ma'am with us. Ma'am, a very, very good morning and welcome back to Bate
Good
and
morning.
Kahisi.
Good morning.
Um, I was just giving our audience a little brief about what we're going to talk about today, that is coro anxiety. This is a topic that we briefly came up with, but if there's anybody out there who's watching us and has any question about anything at all that's troubling you, please feel free to write it down in the comment, and we will address it, because this is what this session is entirely about. Ma'am, I've already given your introduction to our viewers. Some of them also remember you from last year. You've been really generous to be associated with Bate. I would like for you to talk a little about IEC and what you all do there, and then we can begin our session today.
So in IEC, we basically want to ensure that before difficulty occurs, can we prevent it? Yeah. So the different activities that we've been doing over COVID have been related to how do we prevent the distress. So we've run support groups. Specifically, in the last phase, it was about dealing with violence, dealing with trauma, dealing with addiction, dealing with joblessness, financial losses. How do you switch career change? So we provide group and individual counseling. But now we are providing grief support groups, and we are getting a lot of calls to understand how do I support somebody who just lost a spouse? How do I communicate with my children? So we're working also a lot with parents. And we're also working a lot with teachers because they are pained to see so many children drop out of schools, with schools being shut and people not able to afford education. So we are empowering teachers and both parents on how to stay on this journey and continuously evolve and explore new stuff about themselves and their families and their lives. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always a pleasure having you and IEC collaborate with Bate, because this is something that helped me get started on this journey personally. So this is even more a very personal thing to me. Well, it's a new thing for me to come across because I really didn't know that children were dropping out of school. So this was a very new angle of this pandemic that I just came across. So thank you for sharing that with us too. Ma'am, talking about when we were having our discussion about doing this session, you told me about this term coro anxiety that we've recently coined. So could you tell us a little more about that?
So, Ayusha, if I told you I have COVID, what came to your mind?
uh, you've been caught by the virus, so you're probably having fever, you've lost your taste and you've lost your smell, and maybe you're just sick.
Okay, so is she okay? Will this session continue? Was that going to follow?
Yeah, I mean, you would need a lot of rest.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
exactly what coro anxiety is, where there is something that we get to know about, or we imagine, what if I get it? What if my parents who live away get it? And what am I going to do? The what ifs, the thinking continuously about it impacting my behavior. I'm very hyperactive. I can't sit. I can't concentrate. I can't think straight. I'm feeling numb. I'm getting headaches. My heart is beating fast. All the symptoms of anxiety that we psychologists and psychiatrists traditionally understood as anxiety, it's become a world phenomenon now because there is a larger looming threat across the globe, and that is the virus. And it translates into now the term that, it's easier for us to understand. It's coro anxiety, that we are experiencing a lot of different symptoms related to, the thoughts, the voices we have in our head, the pictures we see in our head, the sensations we have in our body, the feelings we have in our heart, how heavy we feel in our soul and our body, and we lose all enthusiasm, motivation, lot of fatigue, lot of tiredness. Just I don't feel like getting up, languishing. All of it is part of coro anxiety.
Um, Thank you so much, ma'am. Well, so coro anxiety need not only be, affecting people who have caught the virus. It is basically something that is happening to all of us at some level, right? So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
so what do you do about it? From what I gather, from whatever you said to us just now, coro anxiety can be anxiety. It's basically anxiety and anxiety related to the pandemic, whatever it has caused us. So it can be for a kid who hasn't been going to school. It can be for like a teenager who hasn't seen the face of their college yet. It can be for me who could not start a career yet, or it can be for my mom who's facing financial losses. So it can be anybody, right? So can everybody actually reach out to a counselor and be like, I need help? Because from what I understand is the mental health community as a whole is already really exhausted. We're doing pro bonos, we're doing, paid programs, but we're trying to keep it as minimum as possible. Counselors are overbooked. And we know in India, people don't want to pay for counseling. And knowing that, in these times, there are pro bono counselors, people are coming with repressed trauma and they want to deal with that. While there
True.
is a lot more going on currently with people, just like you said. So, what can we do? And at what point do we know that, okay, now it's out of my control and I really need to reach out to like a counselor for help?
Good. So, what's important to remember is that I really appreciate the efforts of the entire mental health care provider community that they're trying to bend backwards. There are free conferences, summits that are happening internationally, and the entire global community is trying to really reach out to professionals to train them of how do you actually do trauma-based counseling. But what's important to know that the status world over is that the number of people who are suffering versus the number of healthcare providers is anyway a skewed ratio. We can no longer depend on the fact that, I need to reach out to a counselor and find relief. We have to build systems within our community that take care of each other. Some things we can do. And just like we have frontline workers, be it nurses, be it all the essential services workers, mental health pandemic was already occurring. India was suffering with the suicide being the biggest cause of deaths amongst youth, right? So the crisis was always there. With COVID, it has come up, and we now know that there is an absolute pandemic of this languishing feeling, and we need to ensure how do we create systems of care within our own communities. There are companies who are setting up COVID care support teams. It's amazing the kind of work that people are trying to do to reach out for each other. We just need to ensure, how do we take care of ourselves and how much is too much for us? And then whatever little we have left with us, can we offer it to another?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Having said that, we actually had a lot of people reach out to us, and we've come across this one question constantly, and that is, how do you make yourself emotionally available for a loved one who is suffering from the virus, who's maybe admitted to the hospital or even inside the house, because you can't see that person, you can't be around that person. So, and this person is suffering with coro anxiety clearly. So, how do you actually make yourself emotionally available or helpful to that person?
So I think the first step would be our own self-awareness. The classic example we always give that before you take off, and if there is any crisis mid-air, you first wear your oxygen mask before helping another. So it's very important to understand that we also need refueling. If we continuously do our withdrawal from our bank account, dealing with multiple people who are in crisis without taking out time for our self-care, we are going to struggle to be available. So that's the first step. After that, I think it's important to understand when we need to respect boundaries, when we need to respect privacy and inquire. So often we realized in the last phase, people were saying, okay, how do you think you got the virus? That is a problem focused style of coping, where we are going to focus on how the problem came up, what happened. We have to have a solution focused coping, where we have to look at, okay, what help do you need? Can I make something available? Is it in terms of groceries, in terms of supplies? A lot of us are doing that. We've done that in the first phase, but things have changed a little now. Now I think we are receiving calls about, I know a person who has lost a loved one, and how do I be available to them? If they are in the hospital, we've had, I've had clients call in where their friends have lost parents, and the friends are also COVID positive. So then how do you then, cope with this scenario and be available to them? I think the grief is going to definitely come in, and that grief is going to be in terms of absolute shock, absolute numbness. We may have vicarious trauma where when we see our best friend lose his wife, we are going to be in shock and wonder that, what if and how come this happened? This is going to result in a lot of physical distress for us. We're going to have a lot of somatic symptoms, which is a lot of headaches, palpitations, gastric issues. From that, the person is getting into a phase where they are yearning, they are searching. Whatever they have lost, be it their spouse, be it their parent, be it their nanny, they're going to wonder, why is that person not with me? And at that point, they are going to be in a lot of self-doubt. Why the self-doubt? Because they're questioning, what if I had reached there earlier? What if I was living with them? What if I had not traveled? What if I could have made that oxygen supply concentrator available, right? Different questions. They're going to doubt themselves. At that point, their self is damaged. They are just bruised heavily, and we need to work with their confidence. So a lot of reassurance, what psychologists call validation, helping them understand that, what really was in their control. Also, it's going to be important to hold that person. And so if you are feeling overwhelmed, then it's important that you actually access the community support. So are there other friends? Maybe this person is comfortable talking to you, but maybe you can access other people, help them put up a prayer meet together. The kind of grieving that was possible with all the social customs is no longer there. Or if they are in the hospital and they're worried about their family back home, then how do you be available for the family? So giving them a lot of confidence and at the same time helping them embrace the change that is happening, because for some time they will continue having weakness. For some time they will not be able to be the original self. And honestly, if you have experienced loss and grief, and if you're on this talk right now, we all are changed forever. It's never going to be a carefree Trinjan or a carefree Ayusha not thinking about tomorrow in moments, right? Because we know what COVID did to us. So we all are changed. And I think we're going to just take our time to recover and reboot and reinvent.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Hearing that, there's another question that comes to my mind that we had come across from the question sticker that we put on our story. So there was this person who asked us a question saying, I'm a very sensitive person and I just want to know what am I going to do if I lose my therapist? If something happens to my therapist, how am I going to cope with it? Because I'm very bad with coping with grief. So what do you have to say on that?
I wanted to share my experience. I was little concerned when I was showing some symptoms. Thankfully, it didn't translate into a COVID, but I was wondering that what will happen to my clients who were in the middle of sharing their trauma if I just sort of, and to me the word was coming, what if I abandon them like this? And I had to seek supervision to understand that it's okay, it's a phase. So I think it's best to talk this through with our therapists, and why not extend it even to our families? Do we really have a COVID care plan in place even if we don't have COVID? What is it that we will do? How do we, the more we use our fear as a way to actually utilize our resources and say, okay, how do we best prepare? I know a lot of families did that, and still many things are out of control, but still the known devil is easier to understand. So it'll be important to discuss with your therapist that, okay, what is the exigency plan? How do you mitigate this risk that in the event you're not available, is there some resources you can give me that I can check in? Maybe after every session, we understand the unpredictability of this time. I've had clients whose parents have been, unwell, and they've had to drop out of therapy. So what we offer is just more like a weekly check-in where we see how they're doing and touch base over WhatsApp. So sometimes just opening our doors of compassion, and somewhere the boundaries of the therapist and the client, we had to reshuffle and reorganize that a little so that we can create support available, to everybody around who we are sort of guiding and supporting through this time. And of course, first check in with ourselves.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm just going to read out a message as Soumya has written on the chat. She says, my therapist is also COVID positive, and I also worry for me and her both. Thank you for sharing that with us, Soumya, and we hope that she recovers really soon. Ma'am, I think what you just said about, putting like a COVID care plan in place, irrespective of whether you get COVID or not, I think that almost sounded to me like, you need to be 2 steps ahead of COVID. And I don't know, it sounded very positive to me. So thank you for that.
So the logic here is, I assume I will get COVID, and I tell people 100% apan ko hoga. So it is crisis, but the idea is that can we prepare? We can't see it. It's not an enemy we can see, and hence, it's difficult to sort of just comprehend it. But how can we boost our immunity? And just the way we have gyms and we have bodybuilders making up their muscles and building their bodies, what about building our immunity with our minds? And there's a lot that can be done to really do that. And that also is part of the COVID care plan. It's not just the supply of oxygen, or not just who will get the supplies, or who will, ferry people, and how will you manage the beds. It's so much more about how do you actually work on your immunity.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question in the comment from Ritik, and he is asking, what can a person do if he or she has severe mental health issues and does not have money for treatment, and if the family is against it?
So, if you're an adult, you have every right to seek therapy, and there are a lot of resources that are being circulated. There's a national helpline in India. There are other helplines by private foundations that are offering counseling. It is digital. It's on telephonic medium. Yes, the crunch of space because you may be indoors is difficult. So it will be important for you to still figure a space and a time where you can make that call and then discuss with that person on that telephone helpline, because most of us understand this and we are trained to guide you on how you can seek therapy. Resources are available. If there is a severe distress, it is impacting your functioning. For some people in COVID, and if you want to recognize how anybody is suffering too much, it could be their negative coping styles. People are overusing substances, be it weed, be it cigarettes, be it, the fact that they will not access support. You tell them, reach out to me, and they will not come to you, is also a way that they are negatively coping with it. So, for all of it, I think it's important that we reach out for help. And at the same time, I don't want to put the onus on the person who's suffering, but as families, we need to understand when our loved ones are off, they're not their usual, and we need to start having conversations, just open spaces with an open heart of listening without a value judgment. Because trust me, Ayusha, neither you or me are performing our best these days. Yeah. So we need to just have listening from people around us.
True. Uh, I just felt like I've been put on the spot. Thank you, ma'am.
But
We have
you are a role model, aren't you?
uh, moving on.
Go ahead.
We have another question. Beena, ma'am, if I'm not wrong. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Um, how does one tell the difference between post-COVID psychological and psychosomatic symptoms and something that may be actually manifesting? Is there a clear way of distinguishing between the two?
Well, it is a very important question. In fact, at another platform, it was discussed how half of the COVID symptoms are actually anxiety symptoms. And in fact, before treating COVID, at home, we need to treat the fear. Fear is not our enemy. Fear can be a weapon if we channelize it in the right direction. Fear is our weapon to get families together. It is the time where we drop our uh, the issues we've held in the past, be it the way we didn't like the way our fathers spoke to us, or the differences we had in our family members, and actually sit down and say, hey, what's happening for you. So let's use fear as a weapon and try to release this before we look into the COVID symptoms. The best way to actually figure out if this is COVID or is this because of anxiety. So a psychiatrist is the trained person who's able to understand, is there an organic cause or is there a psychological cause for an illness. So if you just do a counseling session or a check-in with any friendly neighborhood psychiatrist, they will be able to help you with that. A lot of people who are elderly are experiencing certain lifestyle conditions. They have chronic terminal illnesses that don't go away. And at that point, also, there are onsets of depression, isn't it? And we always recommend that the best way is to go to the right professional and get that screening. To start off at home, you can just go back because and think about, are there certain what we call as intrusive thoughts and images, which means I'm sitting here thinking about my symptom and flashbacks of past experiences when I was a child, when somebody said something to me, how everything is something is off and everything is coming together, right? So at that point, it's important to understand that a lot of the grief and the collective grief we're experiencing right now is a manifestation, is happening because of a lot of unresolved grief that we never said, never articulated, never had the space to share. It could be the sexual abuse we've experienced. It could be the violence when a parent was hitting us. It could be various things, and all of that, which was not spoken about, is now coming out in this situation where probably we are experiencing stress amongst our loved ones or ourselves. So two things, psychiatrist, and the other is just see if the things of the past are coming up, and try to focus on the present. If there are certain symptoms which relate to breathlessness and all, there are a lot of resources available on certain yoga positions, something you can do to check and screen yourself. So it'll have to be a team of psychiatrists and your family doctor.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like you to go back a little, and you mentioned the fear just now in your answer. I would like to talk a little more about that because essentially, Koro anxiety is born out of fear. So, talking about the root cause right now would be, I think, really great because how can we actually channelize this fear? And it's not just about preparing for what if you get COVID. It's not just that fear, but it is being in that hospital ward where you're seeing patients die every single day next to you. How can a person in that moment kind of just gather himself together and be like, no, I am going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to walk out of this hospital? Or what does the child sitting outside the hospital who's seeing dead bodies coming out every single day tell herself that no, my mom or my dad is going to make it out, I'm going to see them? So in those moments, what is this fear that we're talking about, and what are the things that we can tell ourselves or do that can help us use this fear as a weapon?
Yeah. So what happens is that the fear is a stress response. Okay. So it when there is fear, there it results in a stress response where each of us have different ways of reacting. Some of us will get up, get in action. We will do everything if we can in our control at that moment to save that person, and we just get on talking, thinking, moving on. For some of us, we will feel very stumped. We'll be like, what to do? I have no idea. And for some of us, we'll be in complete numbness, in shock, and we are confused. We are asking others, we're making 10 calls, and we need somebody else to take the lead. All of this is happening. Why is that? It's a very simple figure. Can you see my hand, Ayusha?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it look like something like a brain? Can
Yes,
you
ma'am.
imagine a brain? Just a simple example, right? Now, when we are in stress, there is a physiological response that our body has. The two main things you have to do is focus on your breath rate and your heart rate. The first thing you need to do is get your breathing in order. Why? Because imagine the caveman time when they saw a lion or a tiger and they would run. It is a physiological response. We want to run away or we want to save ourselves. We can't think because all the energy, our lid is off. The frontal cortex, the part of our brain that does all the thinking, decision making, problem solving, we don't need those processes right now, right? We don't need digestion. We don't need elimination, which means we'll have gastric issues, we'll have constipation, we'll have gas, acidity, we'll have aches and pains. Mind and body is connected. We are only operating from, अरे वो मेरा भाई है यार, वो मेरी बहन थी यार, मेरी माँ थी यार, and what is this doctor? We are so angry with the doctor for not taking good care. What if it? All our thinking is gone. What we need to do then is first get our lid back on. How will you get that lid back on? If you take a moment's pause, because the amazing part about life is that it's with us even when we are sleeping. It's with us till we are alive, which is our breath. So getting your breath together can give a message to your body, all is well. Gather yourself. Come to the present. In this very moment, if you're listening in, just do that. Gather yourself. Because what you're experiencing is real. It's not like it's not there. It is a possible chance. But at the same time, it's not something that's happened now or is occurring right away. It is probably it's a possibility in the future. Once we do that, we get our rational thinking back. हम लोग फिर अब सोच पाते हैं कि अभी करें क्या इसके बारे में. And then we try to diffuse those negative thoughts. Some of us like to journal. Some of us not journal, but even just noting it down and just telling ourselves, okay, that's a sensation. My heart is beating fast. Okay, sensation. What if I lose them? Thought. I'm feeling so anxious. Feeling. Just observe, note it down, and it is like clouds in the sky. Let them go. You don't need to judge them. You don't need to act on them. Let them go. Starting off with that, I think may be helpful.
Thank you so much, ma'am. The floor is open for questions if there's anyone out there who would like to ask any question at all. And on that note, I did personally have another question too, but it just passed with all the other clouds when I was hearing you. So I just need to kind of gather myself together and remember the question that
Take
I
a
had in
moment.
mind. Sorry.
No problem.
It's just,
So a
it's
lot
been,
of times, a lot of times I mean, a lot of people are talking about that it's a crisis, it's a global crisis. And of course, there is a lot of pain. We are getting in calls and hearing the distress stories. We have to focus on if there is danger in this crisis, what is the opportunity? There are going to be certain stages that we are going to experience. So it's going to start with shock, numbness that I've spoken about, going on to yearning and searching. हम खोज रहे हैं वो इंसान के लिए जो अब हमसे जुदा है, right? Then we go on, but when we are searching and we're not finding, and we keep thinking about that person, and we realize that they're not there, our jobs are not there, the kind of lives we had in our cities living independently is not there. There could be a lot of despair, a lot of disorganization. And through that disorganized despair, that phase, we are going to then come to reorganization, again rebuilding, again recovery. So we are going to keep moving between. There will be loss, and loss can be any kind, Ayusha. It's not just because of death. The fact that I didn't get to establish my career is a loss, right? And then there's restoration. अच्छा तो मैं अभी क्या करूँ? What do I do now to, okay, what can I control, and hence I do that, right? So there's loss, restoration, and all of us are going to gradually build ourselves. We already are building ourselves.
yeah. Um, Thank you, ma'am. Um, well, Rohan says, ma'am, my therapist is not available in COVID. I've missed 3 sessions of my counseling. Thank you for sharing that with us, Rohan. We hope you're coping well and thank you for joining us today.
Rohan, you can call a helpline and just leave a text to your therapist. You're not bound by it, but if there's any immediate distress, you can tell the telecounselor that I'm already in therapy, but my therapist is not available. Just tell me what I can do now. So you don't have to struggle alone. You can see if that is feasible. You don't have to get into any established relationship, but just maybe one call so that you get support on what you can do right now with your current, difficulty that you're having.
Ma'am, I think that is actually a very good point to also kind of stress on because I feel when with the kind of conversations we have around the process and the journey of counseling, I feel it is just a preconceived notion for anybody who's going into therapy first is that you have to brief your counselor up about everything that has happened in your life up till now, and then that's when the whole idea about okay, I'm just going to have 1 hour or I'm just going to have 1 hour in a week that comes in, like, when is the change going to happen, because I have so much to tell in such less time. So how about that? How about we just briefly talk about how counseling can also be about what is happening with you right now and what can we do to kind of make it better for now and then.
Just like there is medicine that your general practitioner family doc will do, there's also emergency medicine and there's also an emergency ward, isn't it? There is a crisis response that certain counselors are trained in, not all of them. Usually you need specific training or special experience to be able to do that, but definitely those who are on telephone helplines, they know what kind of guidance needs to be done when it's sought from a reliable source, it can be effective. And that is the model I think as psychologists we will have to adopt right now, because it is a disaster that we are looking at. So we have to follow disaster management tips, right? We can't just keep looking at it from a mental health framework. You have to
Also,
combine
ma'am,
both.
being a psychotherapist yourself, what would you say is what can a prospective client expect from the therapist, and what should they not expect from their therapist? I'm sure you must have come across, clients or throughout your profession, like in this journey, when clients, like new clients, having heard all of these things about counseling, they come with some really vague ideas about therapy, and they're like, I want this. This is what I was told, or this is what I'm supposed to get from you. So, what are some myths, or what are some things that people can expect from therapy?
So often people do come in with thinking that if I will share, you will guide me and you will give me solutions. And while that can be done in a crisis call intervention, that's not the framework that we use on a regular basis. So the ability of the counselor is to decide when I need to just give some tips, and this is not a person who wants to enter counseling, but they just want some guidance, and then I wrap that conversation up in one consultation. Or if the person wants to enter into the conversation, then it is so much about them sharing about themselves, and through that process, we increasing their self-awareness. So the example I often use is like, when you look into the mirror, we all have mirrors at our house, right? We look into it, we get ready. What do? We're just quickly brushing our hair and going ahead. We've had those days when we were attending office. Then there are days where we've not looked at the mirror for even weeks together, right? Because ghar par hai, pajamas mein baithe hain, and we don't need to really do our hair also, right? But then there are days we'll look into the mirror and we'll keep noticing our face and how it's changing. And we've had those moments. So that moment is what counseling is. It's going to help. The counselor is going to be the mirror who's going to help you reflect on what is it that's going on. What is this? The stomach ache, the persistent headache, the acne, or the difficulties you have otherwise in making decisions about your relationships. Why do you have breakups, and why is it that people leave you? Then what is that about? That's why you keep looking into the mirror of yourself and figuring, okay, understand yourself better. You may need professional support. You may need somebody who's on the outside, who is that external mirror telling, giving information back to you.
That was so beautifully explained. Thank you, ma'am. So I think it is also partially about the person kind of deciding what they want out of therapy, so that they can convey
Yes.
that to their therapist, after which the therapist can kind of be like,
Often, yeah, but often this is not possible, Ayusha. So what I do is, and what many psychologists I know do, that in the first session we'll give some idea of what are the goals we can work on. And typically I would say that by the third session, you'll have some sense of whether we're making progress and if you're comfortable and you think you can trust me. And it's really after the third session where it goes on. And now we have people coming in for over a year, having more than 40 sessions, if that's the need. And sometimes just stopping at 3, and that's also okay. And sometimes coming back after 3 years during COVID when something else has happened, which is tragic.
right. Thank you, ma'am. We have another question here from Soumya. She says, sometimes we can't adapt to a new counselor or therapist because for some, it takes time to open up and bond with them, right?
Yes, it can happen. And if the counselor is qualified, they may not, or practice enough that they have, they may not tell you, but they may sense it. And then when they think the time is right, they will bring it up. And that's what we do as psychologists. Just yesterday, I had a session where the client told me that, I think this confrontation is too much. What you keep telling me, I get little edgy. So we shifted the entire session and said, okay, today's session, I loved it. And that made my day, right? So I think it's very important to feel free. The psychologist or the counselor is not the expert. Yes, they're studying behavior, they're studying interactions, but what's important is that they understand you, because ultimately you are the expert on your life. What you feel is yours is unique, and whatever everybody can do, they can never really get it. So it's sometimes left to translation, and then an able voice to be able to ask you and guide you appropriately. What you have is unique and it's special.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So it's also 11:38, which means we are nearing the end of our session today. So I'd once again just like to thank our viewers today, and at the same time, we are open to taking just one or two last questions if there's anything at all. While people are typing whether there's a question or not, ma'am, I would like to thank you once again for being here today and taking up the session with us. Is there anything that you would like to say to wrap up the session over whatever topics we've discussed today?
I think an important segment is that what can people do right now to cope with the current situation, because the distress is increasing and it's looming, and in the months to come it is going to get worse. Like I said, all of us may experience it, right? I think it's important that we go back and think about what are the ways that worked for me in the past. You have your own way of self care, which means that you activities that you enjoy that bring calmness. So it's important to do that. I think a simple framework when people are feeling like they've lost a loved one and you want to activate, we are operating from a framework that I don't have enough. I don't have my family. I don't have the money. I don't have the career. I don't have, the resources. We need to operate from a framework of what I have. So from scarcity, we need to go to abundance. That's only then can we really have resilience. And the three questions that I really urge everybody who's listening in to think about is what you have, I have, what you are, I am, and what I can. You have the support system, what kind, who are the people, I am, what are my personal strengths, what do I identify with, and what I can, what are my skills, my social skills, my interpersonal skills. It is, what can I control, how do I know myself better. I think just answering these three questions will help boost our confidence to deal with this situation. That's part of the immunity plan. And the other part of the immunity plan is focusing on our happy brain chemicals and pumping that up.
Lovely. Thank you so much, ma'am. I don't see questions here anymore. So I think that would be a wrap. But we will be coming up with more such sessions every week. So if there's anything that you would like to ask us with the viewers, if there's anything else you would like to ask anybody, our DMs are open for you. You can always feel free to drop your questions there, and it's as good as reaching out to a counselor. If you need support, we'll get you connected to a therapist. And if it is just a question you need answered, then we can get that too. Thank you so much for watching us. And Srinjana ma'am, thank you so much to you for constantly supporting Bhati in everything that we do, constantly supporting me in everything I do. And
You're
also
being
the
too generous,
entire
Ayusha.
what? No, I have to be. I'm not being generous. It's just gratitude. I have you and I have an organization like IEC, so I'm just counting my blessings. Thank you so much for being here. Stay safe, and I'd love to do this again with you sometime.
Thank you.